We're pulling! What's up, I'm Jimfro, and this is the Ready Check Pull Guide to the Coiled Altar on Normal and Heroic. This fight is 3 phases with a short intermission between phase 2 and 3. It's a mix of single target and 2 target cleave, and you bloodlust during the damage amp in the intermission. Listen, this is a massive step up from the previous bosses. In phase 1, you're fighting Zul'jan while collecting orbs, which you'll destroy with the tank frontal. In phase 2, you're fighting Hexlord and Malacrass while stacking up ghosts, which you'll destroy with the new tank frontal. Then there's an intermission where you bloodlust and blast Zul'jan while Malacrass is resurrecting him. Then that all finally culminates in fighting Zul'jan and Malacrass at the same time, which is basically phase 1 and 2 happening together. Before we jump into the fight though, we have a few assignments first. Drop world markers at the start and end of the platform for the ghost frontals in phase 2 and 3. You need 2 mobile players to be your orb picker-uppers for phase 1 and 3. On Heroic in phase 2, there's an ad that needs 2 or 3 players to rotate interrupts. And on Heroic, split your raid in half for the guillotine group soaks. You'll start by pulling the boss right where he's at in the middle of the platform. The first thing he does is channel Fangs of the Coiled Altar, which is big raid-wide damage for a few seconds and spawns 2 big poison pools on the left and right of the platform that shrink over time. Healers need to be ready for this because it's big damage that happens periodically throughout the phase. At the same time, a bunch of green swirlies spawn around the room, dealing damage in a small circle and spawning coalesced venom orbs. These orbs deal raid-wide ticking damage while they're alive, and on Heroic, put a stacking raid-wide dot on everyone when they're destroyed. So the way you deal with these is by having a couple assigned players collect the orbs. You do that by running over an orb to pick it up, then run to a designated spot, and after a few seconds, the orb automatically drops at your feet. And we use the world markers as rough stack points for the orbs. Periodically, the boss targets the current tank with Sever, a big frontal hit on the tank that also destroys any orbs inside of the frontal. But you need to be careful because on Heroic, destroying too many orbs at once puts too many stacks of the dot on the raid, which can get real scary for the healers. On PTR, hitting 3 or 4 orbs was fine, but 5 or 6 was getting a little bit crazy. And the tanks just taunt swap after every Sever. Any orbs left at the end of the phase when Zul'jan dies are instantly destroyed, so healers need to be ready for that too. The other big mechanic for phase 1 is guillotine. The targeted player needs to move to the edge of the platform and half of the raid needs to stand inside of the soak to help split the damage. Once the soak explodes, everyone needs to run out of the massive circle. Raid-wide movement abilities and lock gates are super great here. The reason you have half of your raid soak it is because on Heroic, the same people can't soak twice in a row. So just split your raid up, alternate who soaks, and make sure to assign raid movement. The last 2 minor mechanics are Venom Fang, which puts a dispellable poison dot on a few players, and the axes that whirlwind around the platform. These just need to be dodged. Once Zul'jan dies, all of the leftover orbs will explode, giving everyone a stack of the dot that the healers need to be ready for. Depending on how many orbs are left up, this can be a great spot for Link, Darkness, Rally, or any other big raid DRs you have. Then Hexlord Malacrass will spawn starting phase 2. The tanks will pick up Malacrass, drag him toward the world markers, while the raid stacks up behind the boss. Then get ready for Dread March. The boss targets a few players with a mind control shield that forces them to walk toward the edge off the platform. Everyone needs to quickly break those shields and free the MC'd players before they walk off the edge. Each player you free spawns 2 ghosts that fixate other random players. The ghosts only stop moving when their fixated player looks directly at them, so those players need to lead their ghosts toward the world marker, stack them up, get away from the frontal zone, and then stare at the ads to freeze them in place. The boss will then cast Soul Sever, the new phase 2 tank frontal. The tank needs to aim the frontal through the stacked ghosts to destroy them. This is also where the tanks are going to taunt swap because the tank hit by Soul Sever spawns soul fragments that they need to quickly run over and collect. If they don't collect all of their fragments in time, they're dead. There's a few circles that go out on players that they need to spread out with away from the raid. When the circles explode, the players spawn soul fragments that they need to quickly run over to collect, just like the tanks did with the frontal. The boss will also eventually put up a big shield and start Eternal Nightfall. Dodge the shadow circles while everyone burns through the shield, then interrupt the cast. On Heroic, there's also an ad that spawns and spams Wail of Terror, which fears the entire raid if it gets off. Ranged players need to instantly swap to the ad and burst it down before it hits 100 energy. You should have a few assigned players ready to interrupt this, but when it's interrupted, it jumps to a random spot in the platform, so try and wait until at least halfway through the cast before interrupting. And you just continue this loop until Malacrass gets to 1 HP, starting the intermission. During the intermission, Malacrass takes 99% reduced damage and starts to slowly resurrect Zul'jan over 35 seconds. During this time, Zul'jan takes 100% increased damage, so this is where you'll bloodlust and blast Zul'jan to try to lower his health as much as possible before phase 3 starts. There's also like a million soul fragments that are trying to walk to Zul'jan and heal him. Players need to run into a few of these to try and mitigate the amount he's healed, but each soul fragment a player runs into does raid-wide damage. This is another great time to use Spirit Link, Rally, Darkness to try and stop a bunch of soul fragments without wiping the raid. Then it's on to phase 3, where you're fighting both Zul'jan and Malacrass and deal with a bunch of their abilities at the same time. The big thing here is the new tank frontal can destroy both green orbs and the Dread March mind control ghosts, so you're trying to get both of them stacked up for each frontal. Tanks will also need to collect their soul fragments afterwards, so taunt swap after every frontal. Zul'jan's raid-wide channel from phase 1 now puts a massive healing absorb on everyone that the healers need to blast through, and you need to keep both bosses close in health because once one dies, the other one enrages. On normal, that's basically it. On heroic, you still get guillotine, so the flow seems to be bouncing from one end of the platform to the other as guillotine happens. You're gonna have to collect orbs while you're running from the blast and also bring the mind control ghost onto the marker for the next frontal. But yeah, no guild, including ours, has public logs of a heroic kill on PTR, and the journal is pretty clear that this is going to be one banger phase. If P3 ends up being really difficult, I'll make a P3 only guide and link it in the description and in the pinned comment. And that's pretty much it. Here's a quick recap for you to review or screenshot for later. You can find full raid plans and all of our recaps over at the Ready Check Pull Discord. A huge thank you to our supporters on Patreon for making these videos possible. If you want early access to all of our guides, extended walkthroughs, and a bunch of other cool stuff, check out the Patreon link below. Peace.